Hello, and welcome to the training session on the Rotary Foundation. Like all of you, I would feel far more comfortable standing in a room in the Dryden Centre, looking at you all and seeing your happy, smiling faces. But we're living in a very different world just now. However, our desire to give service through Rotary continues, and the Rotary Foundation continues to help us with that. Some district officers are delivering their training via an online meeting, and there are certainly advantages in doing that. It's live, there are opportunities for dialogue, and we can see who's there. However, there is a great deal of information in this training video, and it's possible you won't all get all of it the first time. I thought it was useful, therefore, that the video will remain available to you and others in your club to come back to. In addition, there will be those who want to move through the video quickly and others who will want to pause and look again at a slide. In this video, we will look at the Rotary Foundation in general, how it operates, how we can contribute to it, and how we can benefit from it. We will look at the current situation in polio eradication, and the final part of the presentation will be about how clubs can access grant funding to support projects. All clubs who wish to apply for a district or global grant must have watched this training video. In addition, those who are considering applying for a global grant will need to complete an online training guide on the RI website. So what is the Rotary Foundation? Its mission statement is to enable Rotarians to advance world understanding, goodwill and peace through the improvement of health, the support of education and the alleviation of poverty. But the most important thing about the Foundation is that it's Rotary's own charity, which belongs to every Rotarian throughout the world, and crucially, we all have a direct say in how the money is spent. And the money is spent by Rotarians like you and me to support our local and international projects. So what's so great about the Foundation? Well, firstly, the administration costs are very low. Charity Navigator suggests that for most charities, of its income, 75% is spent on its programmes, 15% on administration and 10% on fundraising. For the Foundation, that goes up to 90.6% of the money is spent on programmes, 2.8% on administration and 6.5% on fundraising. All projects for the Foundation are in the hands of Rotarians. We can decide where our projects are situated. Rotarians decide how the funds are spent. The donations can go to the area of focus of our choice, and there are a variety of ways to contribute. For the 12th consecutive year, the Rotary Foundation has received the highest rating, 4 stars, from Charity Navigator, an independent evaluator of charities. So when we talk about the Foundation, we are really talking about 3 different funds, and these are highlighted in red. The annual fund supports Rotary projects around the world, and the amounts we contribute to it directly affect the amount of money we have to spend in district. The Polio Plus Fund, as its name suggests, is where the funding for polio-related projects comes from. Our club and individual giving supports these 2 funds. The Endowment Fund is principally supported by bequests in wills, etc. The annual fund is where our general Foundation fundraising money goes, and it supports all the Foundation's programmes and projects. As Rotarians, we are all asked to give to this fund every year. It's divided into 2. One half of the contributions gets paid into the World Fund, which provides the central funding for things like district and global grants. The other half is called the District Designated Fund, or DDF, and that is credited to our district. It comes back to us for us to spend as we see fit. But crucially, it only comes back to us after 3 years. This table is my attempt to show where the figure for our DDF, our District Designated Fund, comes from, and the 3-year cycle which the Foundation uses. The top line shows the last 4 years and the current Rotary Year. The second line shows the target for district giving, which is simply the number of Rotarians multiplied by $100, as that is the target for individual giving. The third line shows the actual amount that we contributed in that Rotary year, and you'll note a steady decline, though a slight rise last year. The white box shows contributions so far this year, noting that we only have a month of the Rotary year left. I'm very aware that clubs aren't meeting at the moment or holding fundraising events, but I would urge you to consider, particularly in those clubs where foundation giving forms part of your subs, whether your club can continue with your contribution this year, and if so, urge your treasurer to send a cheque to the foundation as soon as possible. The bottom line shows our available DDF. You'll remember that I said that our contributions are split 50-50, with half coming back to us. The coloured arrows show that, for instance, money contributed in 2015-16 formed the basis of our DDF last year, 2018-19. The money we have this year is based on the contributions given in 2016-17, and the money we have to spend next Rotary year is based on the money contributed in 2017-18. The actual available spend is usually more than the basic money we derive from contributions, as we are allowed to roll over any unspent DDF. Over the past few years, this rollover has been as much as $40,000, but can be much less. The reason for the 3-year cycle is that contributions are invested for 3 years, and the interest on that investment goes towards paying for the administrative costs of the foundation. Part of the reason why the administrative costs of the foundation are so low. One of the great advantages of the foundation as a charity is that Rotarians get to decide what the money is spent on. Unlike your giving to other charities, where the decision is out of your hands as soon as your money is given, all the spending decisions about the foundation are taken by Rotarians. So, how have we spent our DDF this year? We have given $6,000 to the Polio Plus Fund. This will get matched 100% from the World Fund and matched 2-to-1, as all Rotary contributions do, by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Thus, our $6,000 contribution will become $36,000. We applied for and received a district block grant of $18,522, which went to support 25 projects across district. And we have so far donated $1,000 to a global grant application. In addition, we have promised a further $30,000 to help support 6 other global grants. So at the moment it looks like we will only have $10,000 left to roll over to next year, though it's likely that not all of the global grants will go through this year. So that's how we spend the money. But where does it come from? How are those contributions made up? Essentially from clubs and individual Rotarians. Clubs set their own goal, but we are asked to consider giving $100 per Rotarian to the annual fund. And there are areas of the world, districts and clubs which achieve this target. In district last year we averaged $39 per Rotarian. But the members of 4 clubs, Derwentside, Durham Elvet, Seaburn and Stokesley, all raised over $100 each. So far this year, 12 clubs have contributed nothing. Our average giving is $29 per Rotarian, but 2 clubs, Seaburn and Durham Elvet, have exceeded this target already. There are opportunities for particularly philanthropic Rotarians or indeed non-Rotarians, to give to the foundation and receive recognition for that giving. Anyone who donates $10,000 to the annual fund or Polio Plus can be recognised as a major donor, and there are 2 of those in district. Anyone who donates $1,000 to the endowment fund of the foundation or pledges to give $1,000 in their will can become a Rotary benefactor. We have 48 in district. And a pledge of $10,000 gives membership of the Bequest Society. We have 5 in district, and 2 of those have pledged to give in excess of $50,000. Anyone who donates $1,000 to the annual fund or Polio Plus fund can become a Paul Harris Fellow. Club donations can also earn recognition points so that you're able to award a Paul Harris Fellowship. This is easy to check on the Rotary website, and if you have any problems, just give me a ring. Like any organisation, the Foundation is keen to sign Rotarians up to regular giving. Just in the same way that the National Trust or the RSPB likes to sign you up to a direct debit to pay your subs so it has a guaranteed income stream, then so it is with the Foundation. The organisation can plan if it knows it has a regular income and what that income is. We are all encouraged, therefore, to set up regular giving, and anyone who contributes $100 or more to the annual fund is designated as a Foundation sustaining member. And now an update on polio. Rotary recognises that the COVID-19 emergency means that some aspects of the polio eradication programme will be affected. We can be proud that the polio infrastructure that Rotarians have helped to build is already being used to help stop the spread of the coronavirus. Throughout the world, polio volunteers have been deployed to address COVID-19 preparations and responses. While addressing the new challenges of today, the most important thing that Rotary members can do to continue the fight to end polio is to sustain our commitment to its eradication. Rotary is aiming to reach a fundraising goal of $50 million so we can work to safely reach all children with the polio vaccine. Most of you will be familiar with the involvement of Rotary in the eradication of polio, but it is sometimes worth taking stock of what has been achieved over the past 35 years. When Rotary began its eradication work, polio infected more than 350,000 children annually. In 2018, only 33 cases were reported worldwide. Thanks to Rotary and its partners, the world has seen polio cases plummet by more than 99%, preventing an estimated 16 million instances of paralysis and 250,000 deaths. But the polio cases represented by that final 1% are the most difficult and expensive to prevent. Challenges include geographic isolation, worker fatigue, armed conflict, and cultural barriers. So, is it just too difficult? We've spent so much money so far. What would be the consequences if we decided not to continue the funding? Until polio is eradicated, no unvaccinated child is safe anywhere. Within 10 years, if we choose not to continue the vaccination programme and polio rebounds, more than 200,000 children could be paralysed each year. And to vaccinate 400 million children every year costs a lot of money. The estimation is that a further $5 billion will be needed. Ending polio does not fall entirely at the feet of Rotary, but we have an advocacy role to play in contacting our local politicians so that support can be secured from governments, NGOs and corporations, as well as the public, to fully fund the amounts required. In Rotary, districts can donate 20% of their DDF, which will be matched by the World Fund. We in 1030 have done that. And the generosity of the Gates Foundation means that for every £1 we give, they will give a further £2. The latest situation is that polio is still only endemic in 2 countries, Pakistan, where there are the most cases, and its neighbour, Afghanistan. There have only been 59 cases reported in those 2 countries so far this year, compared with 1,000 per day when Rotary started its work in 1988. But unfortunately, last year's total of 176 was an increase on the previous year's total, which shows how easily numbers can increase and how important it is to keep up the vaccination programme. Last year, our contribution to the Polio Plus Fund was $26,500, which included $6,500 of our DDF. As I mentioned earlier, we are encouraged to give 20% of our DDF to polio, which is matched 6-fold, and we have done that again this year. But without this contribution, our per capita giving was only $14.50, and more than half our clubs made no contribution at all. So far this year, we have made contributions totalling $17,500. We need to find more innovative ways to raise money for polio. The order forms for crocus corms will be coming out shortly, so do look out for those, as once again we are being limited to 2 million across RIBI. There are also a supply of the End Polio Now crocus badges available in boxes of 100 for £40, which you can use to raise money and awareness for the End Polio Now campaign. And these are our priorities and some ideas for raising awareness and fundraising for the End Polio Now campaign. We are asked to consider a target of $55 per Rotarian. We are asked to talk to our local and national politicians to raise the profile of polio eradication. And lastly, we are to continue to tell the Rotary polio story. We can raise awareness by organising the lighting of buildings on World Polio Day in October. We can continue with our crocus planting. Plant in October, flower in February, but just make sure they're labelled so people know who planted them. We can fill our plates for polio. We can get moving for polio. Unfortunately, our walk that had to be cancelled this year, but it will be going ahead next year. There's polio ice cream, and of course there's the polio teddy bears and badges, all of which are available from me if you'd like them. So these are some crocuses we planted this year in our local hospital. They've gone over slightly, but they're all labelled up to say what they're for and who planted them. And these are ones that we planted with our local school, again showing what they're for, who planted them, and naming the school as well. Rotary Club of Gateshead linked with our local volunteer gardeners to help with the planting, and we went into the local school to give a presentation on polio before we did the planting so that the children knew why they were planting the crocuses. Here are 2 of the slides from that presentation. And here is the Gateshead Millennium Bridge, which for the last 2 years has been lit in purple on World Polio Day. And Polio Bear with the bridge. Please encourage your fellow Rotarians to take action to ensure that polio is eradicated from the world completely. So we've talked a lot about the ways in which we can give to the foundation. But what does it do with all the money? Well, last year it gave out $113 million in grants to fund 1,500 different Rotary projects around the world. These included $11.2 million to help grow local economies and $20 million to fund water and sanitation projects. In the past, the Foundation has had a variety of grants, which some of you may have been familiar with, 3H grants, matching grants and others. But now there are essentially only 2 types of grant. A district grant, which is a block grant to enable clubs and districts to address immediate needs in their communities and abroad, and global grants, which offer opportunities to participate in strategically focused, high-impact activities within Rotary's 6 areas of focus. Each district in RI can bid once a year for a single block grant. The Foundation Committee then take a decision on how this grant should best be distributed between clubs and district. Clubs bid for a portion of this grant to fund small, generally local projects in their communities. Districts in general can usually bid for up to 50% of their DDF for district grant, but this year and next we've been able to bid in addition for up to 20% of our rollover of DDF. Exceptionally for this year, clubs are able to apply for funding to reimburse them for expenses incurred on a COVID-19 related project they have undertaken since the 15th of March. Clubs wishing to apply for a grant can do so during July and August of each year. The closing date is 31st of August. The application form will be circulated to clubs via district notice and is also available on the district website. We aim to support around 20 projects of around £1,000 each, with no more than half of this being provided by the grant. Last year we funded 25 projects totalling just over £15,000. Of these 25 projects, 6 were overseas based, and the community based projects included play equipment for disabled children, equipment for food banks, a water supply to a community garden, and the provision of portable nebulizers. The district grant is always oversubscribed, and whilst we are always delighted to receive applications from more and more clubs, we are never able to give clubs all of what they are seeking. The criteria which the Foundation Committee will use are the following. Clubs must have taken part in training and have completed a Memorandum of Understanding. We will look at how much the clubs have contributed to the project themselves, both financially and in terms of their involvement. And finally, we will look at the club's contribution to the Foundation. Clubs can't expect to take without giving. Global grants are international projects involving a budget from $30,000 to $400,000. The great thing about global grants is that they attract matching from the World Fund. The Foundation will match 50% of the cash that a club or a number of clubs contributes, and 100% of money which is put in by a district from its DDF. The minimum grant for the Foundation is $15,000. Projects involve a minimum of 2 clubs. The club in our district is called the International Partner, and the location where the project is delivered is where the host club is. Global grant projects are long-term, large projects which must align with the Foundation's 6 areas of focus and must have sustainable and measurable outcomes. Any club planning a global grant is urged to send the Foundation Committee an outline of their project, including the anticipated budget and funding sources. In addition, we are asking all clubs to complete the online grant management seminar on the RI website. If you look in the Learning and Reference section of My Rotary, go to Grants and then Global Grants to find the grant management seminar. Just a quick word about educational projects. Many of you will remember the GSE programme and ambassadorial scholars. These still exist in essence, but have to be funded either through a district grant, which provides more flexibility, but we in 1030 would never have enough money, or a global grant, but this would have to be a $30,000 or more project. We have still been receiving scholars in district. Young people, in recent years from the US and Japan, are keen to study in our universities and are sent here under a global grant. A club in 1030 acts as the host club, but there are no financial implications for this club. We don't yet know the implications for overseas students at our universities following the pandemic, but we are hopeful that this role will continue. To receive any kind of grant, both the district and the club must be qualified. Barbara, Alan and I have done our qualification, and this training video forms part of your qualification. In addition, the club president and president-elect will need to sign a Memorandum of Understanding, which is in effect you accepting the terms and conditions of accepting a grant. This MOU is available on the district website or from the Foundation Committee. In addition, those clubs who intend to apply for a global grant will need to complete the RI Grant Management Seminar. This can be found in the Learning and Resources section of the RI website. Look for grants and then global grants. This is just what the MOU looks like, and you will see the point at which you need to sign it. The MOU applies whether you're applying for a district or a global grant. The only difference is that the MOU refers to a requirement to set up a dedicated bank account to receive and disperse funds from the Foundation. This is only a requirement for a global grant, not a district grant. Some of you may know that Arch Klumpf was the Rotarian who established the Foundation in 1917. In the context of this video, he is simply the code word you will need to send to the Foundation Committee to demonstrate that you've watched the video. So if you decide you'd like to apply for a global grant, how do you come up with a project? The most important factor to address is that any project must respond to a real community need. It's vital that you talk to the community where the project is to be located and assess the resources of your club and potential partners. This aspect is so important that the Foundation now require a community needs assessment to be drawn up first. It may be that you want to get involved in a global grant, but you either have plenty of money but no ideas for a project, or a great project but no money. If this is the case, you might find some of these sources useful, and of course the Foundation Committee are happy to help if they can. As part of your planning for a global grant, a club needs to form a 3-person grant committee. Those 3 people need to be assigned roles. There needs to be an implementation plan, a budget, a contingency plan, and a document retention plan. In creating a budget, it has to be realistic. Any purchases that are made has to involve competitive bidding. Items should be reasonably priced, and there should be disclosure of any conflicts of interest. In planning the project, you should set measurable and sustainable goals. These should be both qualitative and quantitative, and you need to determine the method of measuring these goals. To apply for a global grant, you need to go to the RI website and from My Rotary select Rotary Foundation and then Global Grants, where you'll find masses of information and resources about applying for a grant. From there, you can link to the Grant Centre and start your application. All global grants must align with one of the 6 areas of focus of the Foundation. They should be sustainable, involve Rotary clubs in 2 different districts, and have a minimum budget of $35,000. These are the 6 areas of focus of the Foundation, and your project must align with one or more of these. Promoting peace, preventing disease, providing clean water, saving mothers and children, supporting education, and growing local economies. The next 4 slides show what you'll see on the RI website. Go into My Rotary and then click on the Rotary Foundation, which is what you'll see on this page, and then go to Grant Centre under Apply for Grants. This is what you'll see on the Grant Centre page, and you need to click on Apply for a Grant. And this is the Apply for a Grant page, and you simply click on to say that you want a global grant and press the button that says Let's begin. And this is the first page of a global grant application, and you simply go through and fill in the bits that you can. You can stop halfway through, pause and come back to it if you want to. So, how is a global grant financed? Well, the minimum budget for a global grant is $35,000. Any district designated fund money that's put in is matched 100% with the World Fund. Any Rotarian and non-Rotarian cash that's contributed is matched 50% by the World Fund. So this is an example of how you might calculate a funding for a grant. So for instance, the club or a group of clubs raises $10,000. That's then matched by the foundation at 50%, so the World Fund puts in another $5,000. We at District might add a further $10,000 from our DDF, and then that is then matched 100% by the World Fund, so that's another $10,000. So the minimum grant size is $15,000. So this example shows that as a match against club and DDF, 5,000 of that is a match to the club cash and 10,000 of that is a match to the district DDF. There are lots of possible combinations depending on how many clubs are involved and how many districts are involved, but that just shows from a cash contribution of $10,000 you can fund a $35,000 project. Okay, so there's various financing guidelines that we have to look at. International sponsors have to provide at least 30% of the total funding of the project, except if it's a COVID-19 related project. Funds cannot be raised from beneficiaries or cooperating organisations in exchange for a grant. Funds can't come from other grants. All cash contributions, which is essentially the money the clubs put into the project, require an additional contribution of 5% to cover the costs of processing those funds. And lastly, Paul Harris Fellow recognition points will be awarded on the full amount of any cash contributions to the foundation. During the project, there should be ongoing evaluation. This assists with reporting, it improves any future projects, and identifies successes, but it must be an ongoing process throughout the project. Any project should have a detailed financial management plan. As I've mentioned, a separate bank account should be set up to receive and distribute funds. There should be a detailed ledger of how the money is spent, and this should include any local laws in the host country. All documents should be retained in an accessible location. This can be on paper or electronically, but not a pile of receipts in an old shoebox under the bed. They should be retained for a minimum of 5 years for the foundation, but under UK finance law, they should be retained for 7 years. The foundation is giving out a lot of our money through global grants, and it's not unreasonable that they should expect reports on a frequent basis. There should be progress reports within 12 months of the first payment and every 12 months through the life of the grant, and a final report should be made within 2 months of the completion of the project. There is lots of additional sources of information out there. The RI website at rotary.org has an awful lot on various sorts of grants and how the foundation operates. There's also a lot of downloadable PDFs there, including a guide to global grants, and of course your foundation committee stand ready to help at any time. You can email any of us, me or Stuart or Susan or Robin, and please do get in touch if there's anything that we can help with. So what happens next? So this foundation training video is available on YouTube and will stay there for a long time. I'll also put the PowerPoint slides onto the website so you can go back and have a look to see if there's any particular numbers that you want to copy off. Stuart, our grants chairman, is holding a Zoom meeting on the 8th of June, and that's particularly to help any club wanting to apply for a grant. The Memorandum of Understanding for you to sign and return will be available online or from the Foundation Committee, either from me or Stuart. This MOU needs to be signed and returned by the 31st of July, together with the code word from this video. Application forms for District Grant will be available early in July, and we're asking for bids from clubs for District Grant by the end of August. Applications for global grants can be made at any time. So you'll be pleased to know that that's the end of this training video. Thank you for listening to it thus far. I hope it's been helpful, but if you have any questions or anything that doesn't make sense that you want to find out some more information about, please do contact me or any member of the Foundation Committee.